So in the Make Assignments sheet, let's just talk briefly about assignments. So you have, this is a sheet that you might be working in, and you might be assigning responders to leave from particular places on particular days. And I'll get into the mechanics of that in a minute, but it's going to search for who has been assigned, and then it's going to track what their qualifications are. And it's going to look in, we have it over here, it's displayed the qualification of each individual. And so you're looking for a particular term. Let's say you're looking for the word nurse because you want to include nurses and nurse practitioners. Well, in that case, in here, your search word for nurses should be nurse. But you can see how this word might be different than this word. So this might be French speaking, and your search term would be French, for example. All right, any questions about the graphs, the charts? All right, well, let's go back to the Make Assignments sheet, because this is really where all the magic happens. Where were we? We were here where we have the first name, last name, the unit. We've talked about whether the roster has found a match. We've talked about whether the license was verified. And we've talked about selecting a volunteer status, accepted, denied, or pending. As we scroll through, this green section here is what you're going to complete before the responder even leaves their home, okay? Here we have in beige, these are the dates that they've said they're available for and the number of days they would not want to be deployed for more than. So 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 5, however many days they say they were willing to be deployed. In these green columns here are where you are able to make assignments. But let's sort of take a step back because this sheet looks really complicated and there's a lot of different volunteers from different units here. So you may want to look at only your unit's volunteers. And let's say my unit is Philadelphia. Well, there's a way to do that. You're going to go up here and use a filter view. So this is the filter symbol, but we're going to go next to it and click Create a New Filter View. What a filter view does is it provides you and at your computer allows you to filter the data based on a certain column. So in this case, we're looking to filter it based on the unit column. But I don't want this to change the view of anybody else working in the spreadsheet, right? So the filter view is essentially my view. So to set this up, I just clicked Create a New Filter View, and this black box appeared around all the data. And I also noticed that there's these little blue arrow boxes on each column, and it's going to let me filter by these different items that appear in that column. But I don't want these boxes up here because I don't want them to filter based on, say, the header or some of those other things. I only want it of the data, which starts at row 11. So that's pretty easy to do, actually. You go up here, and here you can adjust the range of the filter and the name of the filter. So the name, I'm going to name it Philadelphia Volunteers Example. All right. The range, I want to be the entire spreadsheet from row 11 down. So here I'm going to, instead of A1, I'm going to put A11 and through, let's just make this ZZ2000, right? So this is really includes the entire spreadsheet. Oh, sorry, A11. So now we notice that these blue boxes jumped right down to here. Oh, sorry, actually I'm going to have to put, you want this to be the header row, so this would be 10. And now the little boxes appear on the header row here. So let's go to the unit, and now I'm presented with an example in this little white box of a list of all of the different values that exist in the column. And let's say I only want to see Philadelphia's. I'm going to click Clear, and then all the check marks disappear, and now I can select Philadelphia only and click OK. And now I see only Philadelphia volunteers. Okay. So now let's go through the process of making an assignment. So let's look at Neil Batra, happens to be me. Let's say that the license is confirmed. Let's say that this person is accepted for the deployment. And now we can see that Neil is willing to be deployed from the 14th of October to the 23rd of October, but only for 6 days, all right? We're going to know that this person is from Philadelphia, so home rally point is going to be Southeast Pennsylvania. Now, automatically, the address and contact number that is associated with that rally point appears. The destination, we'll say that the disaster is in Pittsburgh, which is in Allegheny County, so that's where we're going. Again, the address and contact information appear, all right? And scrolling down, we have a departure date, departure time, and a return date and deployment duration. So here's where we're going to use this departures dashboard to aid our decision making, because we want to make sure that we're assigning this person to the right dates and right times, but also to a time on a particular day that actually has vehicles leaving. So we can see that I'm available on the 14th, so let's have my departure date be on the 14th. 2015, 10/14. This is a list of the departures that exist so far in from the enter data sheet. Remember, there was a list of departures. And then time, I have to select a time that actually exists, leaving from Southeast Pennsylvania on the 14th. Now here, I'm going to go to my dashboard. Okay, so you have this dashboard here, and you need to have it select Southeast Pennsylvania and the correct date. And what appears is a list of the departures that are scheduled to leave from the location you selected on the date you selected. And they're organized here by the departure time, and then they list the maximum capacity for that departure, the current number of people assigned to that departure down here, and how many spots are available, and whether the status is available or full. And note that if you do overbook a spot, the number turns negative and it turns red. So let's go and reapply this filter view that I took off for the moment. So Philadelphia volunteers, example, we were looking at Neil Batra here. And so we've decided that he's leaving on the 14th. And so we need to look at leaving from Southeast Pennsylvania on the 14th. I can see that the bus at the departure at 8 a.m. is full. But I do see that at 9 a.m. there are 20 available spots, so I'm going to put him leaving at 9 a.m. So I'm going to go to the drop-down list here and select 9 a.m. Now I pick a return date. Well, let's say I don't really pay attention to this, and I pick a date that is after when Neil said he is willing to come back. Let's say October 30th. Well, instantly, the computer, the tool, once it calculates, is going to notice that this date exceeds Neil's availability date. I said the 23rd, and this person selected the 30th. Sorry, Neil said the 23rd, and the person assigning him said the 30th. So that turns red. Similarly, if the date you assign them to leave is before their availability, this cell will also turn red. And notice how it looked and saw that that Neil is only available for 6 days, and this is 17 days. It turns red. But we can change that. We're notified immediately. Let's change this to be let's see here, what date? 14 for 6 days. So let's do 14th through the 19th is now 6 days inclusive, and these should turn green momentarily. So now we'll be all set. There we go. So those are the basic assignments that need to take place before a person leaves their home, before a responder leaves their home. So the unit coordinator would go through and do this for all of their units individuals, whether that's 3 people or 300 people, and make those assignments. So what happens then? Well, you may want to send them an email that tells them where to meet and when to meet. And we'll get to that at the end of this webinar, but just so you're aware, that happens by going up to this add-ons and launching this Autocrat sort of add-on, they call it. It's kind of like an app. But let's say now you're at the phase of the response where you want to you've mobilized the volunteers, you've sent, you're standing up rally points, and people are starting to show up at rally points. at the rally point, you probably have a rally point manager. And as people arrive, they're going to want to see a roster of who they should expect to arrive. And so here in tabs is departure rosters. And so here the users are able to select a location, a date, and a time of a departure. And up pops a roster of the people who have been assigned to show up on that particular date and time and place, along with their unit and their cell phone number. I also wanted to point out, you're familiar with this dashboard here. If you want the full list of all the departures and their current status, you can go to this yellow tab, Master, go to this Master List of Departures, and you can see the list of all the departures and their current status. I've also set it so that any departures that are leaving today are highlighted in yellow. And so none of these happen to be leaving today, but they will highlight in yellow if they are. And so actually we can demonstrate that. So let's change this one to leaving on May 4th. So to do that, we would go into the entered data, to the departures list. We'll find the one that's leaving on May 1st, and we're going to change this to leaving on May 4th. And we'll go back to the master list of departures, and now we have that it's highlighted as leaving today. So it catches your eye. But like going back to the rosters, you now got a departures roster, and you can also have next to it the vehicle roster. So we'll get to that in a moment, but know that there's a roster for vehicles and also a roster for a particular work site or a particular shift, all right? But going back to the Make Assignments tab, let's say you're a Rally Point manager. People are arriving who are supposed to be arriving at your rally point. You're going to find their name in here because you also have access to this Google tool if your rally point has access to the internet. And you can input these people as being checked in, or they didn't show up, or et cetera. And again, this drop-down list you can edit, so to make your own options. And then once they are checked in and you assign them to a particular vehicle, you want a roster of who is getting on what vehicle. Let's say the vehicle crashes and people get hurt. You want an accountability of who's on what vehicle. Let's say a vehicle is delayed. You want the same purpose. So in the entered data, you create a list of all of the vehicles. And I think that's down at the end here. Vehicle numbers is what it's called. But you have here a list of all the different vehicles, and you can add to that right in here at the bottom. And the Make Assignment sheet, you maybe are assigning this person to be on Southeastern Pennsylvania Bus 1, this person on Southeastern Pennsylvania Bus 2, depending on what time and day they're leaving. Because remember, there may be multiple vehicles leaving from one place at a departure time. And the way I see this going is the Rally Point manager may not have this laptop up with them, but they may be working off of a clipboard and then go back after the fact once the bus is left and enter, who exactly got on what bus. Great. So Neil has been assigned. He checked in at the rally point. He showed up and got on the bus. And one other reason why I've separated this is because you never really know who is going to show up at the rally point. We all know that only a certain % of the volunteers are actually going to show up for the departure, and so you want to wait to assign the bus until you know, all right, this person actually came through and showed up at the rally point. And similarly, all these other assignments we're about to make, you don't want to do that until you know exactly who is in your pool of volunteers that actually showed up. So that's in yellow. Then we have the blue assignments, where these are sort of the more detailed assignments relating to the disaster area. So Neil now travels across the country and checks in at the reception center. His bus has arrived. And now at the reception center, a series of assignments are made, including the jurisdiction, particular county or city the person is assigned to, the particular residence they'll be staying in, and the work site that they're assigned to, and the role they've been assigned, and things like that. Now, these assignments could happen at the reception center they could also happen while the volunteer is in transit. So let's say there's a 6-hour drive between the rally point and the reception center. Well, the reception center staff can be filling out these assignments once they know a person has checked into the rally point because they know they will be arriving 6 hours later. So jurisdiction, let's say this person is assigned to Erie County, accommodations, Erie Responder Shelter 2, the location will be automatically generated here. The work site is, let's say we're gonna work at Erie Shelter 1 or Erie Shelter 2. Again, the work site location appears, and Neil, we can see his qualifications are he's non-medical, so we're going to put him as line staff. Great, so now that's all recorded. We can keep going into the green section if we want and assign Neil to shifts. So Neil, we can still see his name here, is arriving on the 14th, if we recall. So let's say we're going to give him 1 day of spare time because he's getting in on the evening on the 14th. So we're going to have him work the 15th. And we have an option of shifts, day shift. Second one is going to be on the 16th, day shift, et cetera, et cetera.
So Neil, I see, if I can interrupt for a second, I see that you're assigning Neil to all these different shifts, but his role was only chosen one time as line staff. So is that just something that, you know, he should just be line staff the whole time, or is there a way to change that for later shifts?
So that's a good point. The way the tool is set up now is that the role of the responder in the disaster is only selected once. And that's just, I would like to be able to have role in for each shift change, but given just time constraints right now, it's one role for the response. Now, you could change this mid deployment if you wanted. It's just as simple as going in and changing it. And that way, on that particular day, the worksite roster, it would show that he's a vaccinator. But right now, it's just you pick the one role that is the most that the person is qualified for.
Right. I think that's fine. And I know that, you know, once they're actually there, you know, if there's a different demand, they may change things around based on the management at the site. So I think that works out well.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Thanks.
All right. So we've assigned Neil through 4 shifts. And that may be all we want to do. This goes up to 10 shifts. If you go more than 10 shifts, there is some additional legwork you have to do in the background in order to make this worksite rosters actually work. So this worksite rosters allows you to pick a worksite, a date, and a shift, and it'll pop out the names of the people in their assigned role for that particular shift. So if you do want to add more than 10 shifts, you will have to do some additional legwork in the background, which is detailed in the instructions tab at the very bottom. However, just remember that these shifts don't have to be 12 hours. They could be a day. They could be a week is one quote-unquote shift. You know, it just it sort of depends how you want to organize it. All right.